Hey, JS Home Cook, JS Home Cooking Channel. Got a fast one for you today. Going to show you how to make kombucha. I notice people get intimidated by the idea of fermenting things at home, but really there's no reason to. It's really safe if you follow basic hygiene principles. So just make sure you're working with clean equipment and you'll do fine. I'm going to do one of my go-tos for this demonstration. That's orange juice, apple, and raspberries. When you make kombucha, you use up most of your SCOBY and then you replenish the remainder with a feeding of sweet tea, which will eventually make more SCOBY. You can use black or green tea for your SCOBYs, whatever your preference. Just make sure that it isn't a blend. You want a pure, unadulterated black or green tea. I like to use Ceylon, and I just buy whatever's on sale. After you've fed your SCOBY, it'll take about a week for it to be ready for use again. And if you don't feed it for 2 or 3 weeks, there's a pretty good chance it'll die and you'll have to start over. But if you put it in your fridge, it'll live a little while longer, just like a sourdough starter. If you don't already have a SCOBY, you'll have to make your own or buy one, but I advise that you make your own. The markup on starter kits for kombucha is crazy. You can make your own SCOBY for about $5. Meanwhile, those capitalist fat cat hippies are trying to sell you powdered culture in a 1-gallon mason jar for 50 smackaroos. So if you don't have a SCOBY, save yourself some money and just make your own. If you're not sure how, I'll show you right now. And in a week from now, you can start making your own kombucha. Before I show you how to make that SCOBY, we're just going to talk quickly about some tools and equipment you'll need. Ideally, a large glass vinegar or mason jar to hold your SCOBY in, and additionally, bottles for bottling your kombucha. I just save the bottles of kombucha that I buy on occasion, and then use them to bottle my own kombucha. But you can also use swing top beer bottles like Grolsch for this, so if you like Grolsch, just go out, buy a 4-pack, slam those back, and you're good to go. At any rate, use what you've got. If you have a juice pitcher, use that to hold your SCOBY. And if need be, you can bottle your kombucha in 1-pint wide-mouth mason jars. I'm not big on selling people the idea they need to go out and buy stuff to make this. Just use what you've got. Preferably use glass, but plastic is okay. Just don't use metal. Because for unclear reasons, I believe you shouldn't. But if you really want to make this and you don't have everything you need, then I guess you got to go buy something, and that's okay too. While I've still got this image up on the screen, I want to talk about that bottle in the middle. That's the type of kombucha you're going to need to make your own SCOBY. Not that particular brand, but you do need an unflavored, raw kombucha to start your own SCOBY. They're a little harder to find than the flavored ones, but they are out there. A good place to look are health stores, like VitaHealth or any other store as such. The notion that you need an unflavored, raw kombucha to start a SCOBY is one that I question the merits of. But that seems to be what everybody else thinks, so that's why I'm recommending it. In the future, I kind of want to test that out and see if you can just use a flavored one. I'll let you know if I ever do. To feed or start a new SCOBY, you will need a ratio of 1 cup or 240 grams of sugar to 1 gallon or 4 liters of water. I know a gallon and 4 liters aren't exactly the same, but it really doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to make this amount of sweet tea if you don't want to. You can certainly just do half. I just do this amount because I have the 1-gallon jar there. If you are making a SCOBY from scratch, you will need approximately 500 milliliters or 1 pint of raw unflavored kombucha for this amount of sweet tea. So get a big pot and dump your sugar and your water into it, and then get a buddy you trust to come by and inspect your work. And if they refuse to leave after they've done that inspection, just remember to be nice to them. They don't know any better, they've got a little baby brain, and they're just curious about what you're doing. So gently just nudge them out of the way, and then once they're gone, you can get back to filling up your stock pot right up to the brim and gingerly walking it to the stovetop. So get that sugar completely dissolved, then bring the solution up to a boil. Once you have, you can turn down the heat and you will add 10 tea bags for 1 gallon of solution. Please note, I'm actually doing a triple batch here, and that's why my stock pot was filled right up to the top like that. So I had to break out that smaller saucepan just to divvy up the liquid a little bit there. But once you've got those tea bags in there, you can just go ahead, cover them, turn off the heat, and let them steep for about 5 to 10 minutes. After about 5 or 10 minutes, come back and shake a little spoon around and find some or other tool to help you remove the tea bags from the pots. After you've removed the tea bags, cover the pots and let them cool down until they are at room temperature. Once that sweet tea is at room temperature, you can mix it with the pure unflavored kombucha to start a new SCOBY, or you can just add that sweet tea to your SCOBY that you already have. But if you already had a SCOBY, you probably already knew how to do this.
Why are you here?
Now that you know how to make the sweet tea to feed or start a new SCOBY, I'm going to show you how to make kombucha with a mature SCOBY. Start out by reserving 2 cups or 500 milliliters of your mature SCOBY and set it aside for later. Pour the rest of the SCOBY into the sealable containers you intend to use for fermenting your kombucha. Do not fill the containers all the way to the top, only fill them about halfway because you still need to add your flavors and your juices. If you run out of bottles for kombucha, just leave the extra SCOBY in your SCOBY jar and then add the SCOBY you reserved earlier back into that jar as well. I recommend that you occasionally clean your SCOBY jar as I had done here, just to ensure you don't get any foreign pathogens inside your jar, which will then make you have to throw away your SCOBY. I don't wash it every single time I make kombucha, but maybe every other time or so. So I would advise you to do something similar. But once you have a well-established SCOBY culture, it does become pretty resilient. And it's really only in those early stages that it's really susceptible to pathogens and foreign entities, Sasquatch. After that, it's pretty much bulletproof. So for this kombucha flavor, I'm going with roughly chopped apples, frozen raspberries, and freshly squeezed orange juice. And I'm just adding that all into a blender cup. And then once it's all in there, I'm going to whir it up and adjust the thickness of the slurry as needed with additional orange juice. There are many other ways of flavoring your kombucha. A lot of people actually just do like chunks of fruit that they put in their bottle with the SCOBY. And from what I've seen, it actually does seem to work pretty well. But because I have these bottles with the narrow little opening at the top, I just make this slurry and then run it through a sieve and then pour the juice from that into the bottles. It's a more work-intensive method, but I'm trying to find ways to streamline it. And truth be told, I do find I prefer the texture it gives the finished kombucha, or at least that's what I tell myself. So it often ends up being the method I decide to use. Just know that it isn't the only method and that there are easier ways to do this, like adding cut up pieces of fruit or using juices that you bought from a store. There really are an endless number of ways that you can go about flavoring your kombucha, and I just encourage you to go out and try all sorts of different things. You'll find something that works best for you. Eventually, I'll probably start doing more kombucha videos just to show you some different flavor combinations, so I can show you some of the things that I thought might taste good, and then I'll let you know whether it was or wasn't. But now that we have our fruit slurry, we can add it to our kombucha bottles. And just as we practiced restraint with the SCOBY, we are not filling these bottles all the way to the top. I like to fill the bottles halfway up with the SCOBY, and then fill the bottle to around the 3/4 mark with fruit juice. And this is just in case you get an extremely active bottle of kombucha, because when you have one of those, they tend to open like a shaken can of soda, and leaving that space in the bottle gives you extra time to react. Once you have your bottles filled, close them up, give them a shake, and set them somewhere to let them ferment. Check on them after a couple of days by opening the bottle to see if there's any carbonation. If it sounds like this, it isn't ready. If your kombucha doesn't seem to be carbonating, don't be discouraged. Just give it a few days, and if it starts sounding like that, you know you're on the right path. If it still isn't sounding like that after 4 days, I would just give up on that batch and start a next one once the SCOBY's ready. Maybe just give that SCOBY a couple extra days to develop. And if it still didn't work, don't give up. Failure is just a part of life.